Hello, this is Mike Berg from We Heart Games. I've got 65 layers tips in 8 minutes for you. Here we go. First we're going to talk about clicking on the layer palette itself. When you double click on the icon for a layer, it opens the layer styles window. But if you double click on the icon for a text layer, it selects the text and lets you edit it. If you double click on the icon for a adjustment layer, it opens the settings for that adjustment layer. If you double click on the color swatch here for a shape layer, it lets you change the color of that shape. If you double click on the name of a layer, it lets you rename the layer. If you double click outside the name of the layer, it opens the layer style window. That includes this space just above the name. If you double click the FX icon, it predictably opens the layer styles palette, but if you double click on an individual layer style, it opens the layer palette and takes you directly to that style. New layers can be created by clicking on the new layer icon, or press Command-Shift-N, and this prompts you with a new layer palette that encourages you to name your layers. Layers can be dragged to reorder them, or you can press Command square bracket to move them up and down, or press Command and Shift square bracket to move them to top and bottom. Command click a layer's name to select more than one layer, and command click a layer's icon to make a selection out of the shape of that layer. These selections will not include layer effects if you have effects that extend past the outer edge of the shape of your layer. With the selection made, you can hold down Command and Option to subtract a shape from your selection, or Command, Option, and Shift to create an intersection of those two shapes. You can quickly delete multiple layers by holding Option and pressing Delete. You can transform layers by selecting them and pressing Command T. This gives you standard transform tools. If you put the cursor just outside, it turns to a rotation handle, and you can rotate your object. If you hold down the Shift key, it locks it to 15-degree increments. If you want to change the numbers up here numerically, you can. You can click this button to link the proportions together, and you can actually click and drag here left and right to scale that way. You can also set this to be pixels. If you want this to be 200 pixels wide, then you just type pixels instead of %. Some other transformations: if you hold down the Command key and grab a side handle, it lets you skew the object. If you grab a corner handle, it lets you sort of free transform this thing, give it some perspective. You can press the Enter key to accept your transformation, or double click inside the shape of the layer. Layers can be grouped into folders to be easily organized. Click the new group icon to create a new group. Layers can be dragged into the group, or you can drag a selection of layers to the group icon. This creates a new group with those layers inside. Or you can select multiple layers and press Command G to group them. You can use the Move tool to move all the layers in the group at once if you have the group selected, or even transform all of them at once. To duplicate a layer, use the Move tool and Option drag the layer. Hold the Shift key to constrain that into a straight line. You can also duplicate a layer by dragging it to the new layer icon, or you can duplicate a group by dragging the group to the new layer icon. Note that you drag the group to the new layer icon to duplicate it, because groups can be nested. You can drag any number of layers and groups onto the group icon, and it will create a master group for all of those. You can also duplicate a layer or selection of layers by holding the Option key and dragging it within the layers palette. You can also drag layer effects from one layer to another. That moves them, but if you Option drag that layer effect, it copies it from one layer to another. The fastest way to copy layer effects from one layer onto multiple other layers is to right-click the layer effect and say Copy Layer Style, and then select all of the other layers you want to paste it to and say Paste Layer Style. If you need to merge two layers, the easiest way to do that is to simply press Command E. This merges the current layer with the one that is directly below it. Note that if you have layer effects, text, or anything else editable, you won't be able to edit these after you do a merge. If you select more than one layer, pressing Command E merges those selected layers. If you select a group, pressing Command E merges the group. If you want a copy of everything that's visible, Press Command A, Command Shift C to copy merged, and then Command V to paste. If you don't need a copy and you just want to merge everything that's visible, you can select Layer, Merge Visible, or Command Shift E. If you want a merged copy of several layers, select the layers that you want and Option drag them, and then press Command E. To fill a layer with a color, Command Delete fills the layer with the background color. Option Delete fills it with the foreground color. This can be used to quickly change the color of text layers and shape layers. On a paintable layer, this would automatically fill the entire layer, but if you add Shift to the key command, it maintains the transparency of that layer. You can lock the transparency of a layer to keep the shape of a layer. This helps when you're doing some painting adjustments, but you want to keep the shape of your layer. You can also lock the pixels, which includes the color. This layer can now only be moved and transformed, but it can't be changed in any other way or painted on. Lock the position to make sure your layer doesn't move accidentally, or just lock everything. You can set the opacity of a layer by dragging the slider here. That sets the overall opacity for the entire layer. The fill sets the opacity for the shape of the layer, but does not actually affect the layer effects. You can see the layer effects are still visible. You can quickly adjust either of these with one click by clicking on the label and dragging left and right. You can also select the opacity for an entire group all at once by selecting the group and changing its opacity. You can use this pop-up up here to change blend modes for the layer. This changes the way the layer is blended with the layers below it. To give you a general overview of how I understand it, the first set, the multiply set, makes white transparent and black opaque. The screen set makes black transparent and white opaque. And the overlay set makes 50% gray transparent and both white and black are opaque. Now, the best way to see how these work is to quickly cycle through them, and to do that with a keyboard command, just make sure you're not using a brush tool and hold Shift and press plus or minus. And this cycles through the different blending modes for the current layer. Well, those are some of the ways that I manipulate layers regularly. If you have any more tips, please leave them in the comments. If you have any questions, you can grab me on Twitter at WeHeartGames. See you next time.